purification. So, as usual, before we start the session, let's just step back into a few moments of silence. Thank you. It's very warm greetings to you all. It gives me great pleasure once again to introduce Gitanjali to you, our speaker today. It's always such a delight to have her with us. She's co-founder, director, and dean of the Himalayan Institute of Alternatives in Ladakh, HIAL, an alternative university for mountain development, based on the principles of contextual and experiential learning that is transforming higher education in India. So Gitanjali has advised the governments of Maharashtra and Ladakh in redesigning their educational policies. And she is authoring a book on the 5 pillars of the education of the future, which is slated to be released by the end of this year. In addition to all this, she is an Odissi and ballet dancer and a black belt in karate, so you better watch out. She is also a TED speaker and a Chevening Scholar at Oxford University and Women Transforming India, now national awardee from the Government of India. Now, the session tonight is Purification, the first step to liberation, perfection, and delight. So it should be wonderful to hear this session. Over to you, Gitanjali, and enjoy the session.
Yeah, thank you, James, and thank you, everybody, for joining me today in this path of pilgrimage in our journey to our own self-perfection. And when Aurobindo recorded his progress, his spiritual progress in the record of yoga, he mentioned about the Sapta Chatushtaya, the 7 aspects of perfection, and Chatushtaya in 4 levels. And the final was the Siddhi Chatushtaya. It was about the final perfection, and the 4 steps to that perfection, to that Siddhi, were, as mentioned by him, the first is Shuddhi, or purification, and then Mukti, which is liberation, Bhukti, delight, and Siddhi, perfection. So these are the 4 steps to the final perfection. And the first one is purification. Across the world, if we look at different spiritual disciplines, we find that purification is the first and necessary step. When we look at Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, even there, it starts with Yama and Niyam, what one should and one should not do. Of late, I have been residing in Ladakh, where Tibetan Buddhism is followed, the Vajrayana Buddhism. And the very initial practice there is the Vajra Sattva practice, which is, Sattva is again purity, and how the first step is the purification of the being. Today we'll dwell more about what this purification means in the light of Aurobindo. And recently I visited a diamond factory, and I was very much amazed to see how the diamond industry very much corresponds to this purification. Every diamond is valued based on 4 aspects. Okay, the cut, how many cuts it has, the clarity, the color. Okay, but the highest thing is about its purity. And even though it has other things, but if the purity is lacking, then the value of the diamond comes down. And this purity are those little pieces of obstruction that exist in the diamond, and they do not allow the reflection and the refraction of the light, leading to the lack of that sparkle. So the diamond does not sparkle because there are these obstructions inside the diamond, and that does not allow the light to reflect and refract. Now, if we look at ourselves as those diamonds in the making, then it's very similar that the process of our purification also depends on what obstructions are there in us and how these obstructions do not allow the divine light to shine through us and to help us sparkle in this world. And in Aurobindo's yoga, this is the triple knot of ignorance. This obstruction is this triple knot of ignorance corresponding to the triple world of lower nature in our mind, life, and body. And this triple knot of ignorance is the knot of ego, desire, and attachment. Now, a lot of purification is spoken about in different aspects of human life, be it in the management world or in the social world. And those are merely things that correspond to our behavioral aspects, or at most our ethical, legal, ethical, and moral aspects. But in Aurobindo's yoga, these would be considered as patchworks or very like quick fixes, which do not actually help us in the entire transformative aspect. So the transformative part of purification is to catch hold of that aspect, that real nexus, the lever, where once we start working on purification, it will start reflecting in every aspect of our behavior, of our ethical life, our social life, our moral life. So it's from within outward to these changes that we have to look at, and purification, and not from without to within. So just merely behavioral and ethical is not enough. It has to start from within and at the very knot and nexus of that ignorance. So the first impurity or the first obstruction is the very basis, the way we have been evolved. Okay, our very evolution is what has given rise to the first impurity, and which is this ego. And there's nothing wrong or bad about ego. It is just a part of evolution which was required. As Aurobindo says, ego was the helper, but ego is the bar. So an ego has its base in the mind. So the triple world of ignorance is the mind, life, and body. And corresponding to these three are the obstructions. Ego corresponds to the mind, desire to the life, and attachment to the physical body. And we will today look at these things, these three things, and see how we can purify ourselves of these three obstructions and become that sparkling diamond that I was talking to you about. Another simile that comes to my mind, and which is part of Indian religions, is the festival of Deepavali. Diwali is celebrated in India, which is the festival of lights. But preceding it for about a week, what happens in most Indian households is the cleansing part of it. The entire house is cleaned from top to bottom of everything, and everything is looked at from its purpose, and it is either discarded or it is kept in the house. Because before the lights are set up, it's important that the web, the spider webs and other things are all cleaned. So that is why each and every chair and table from top to bottom, the almirahs, all the clothes, they are cleaned up. And to me, that also symbolizes this purification that we have to do in Sri Aurobindo's yoga. In other yogas, even Indian yogas, it is okay to look at and take up one aspect of the being and take that up as the means by which siddhi can be attained. But in Sri Aurobindo's yoga, it being integral, every aspect of our being has to be taken up and purified, because what is expected or what is the final outcome is this integral perfection, this integral siddhi. But even here, we can always take the help of that part in us, which is the most advanced, or which is the biggest visionary, and which has been taken in by this aspiration. And Sri Aurobindo says that in our case, it is the mental being, the higher mental being, the higher intelligence, the buddhi. So buddhi is the lever that we use in order to help other parts of the being, because when they are all interrelated. The reason why it is very difficult to purify the entire being, because one is assailed by the other. Even though we have achieved some purification in the mind, if the emotional being has not been perfected, one fine day we just find that our reason and our higher intelligence has just gone out of the window because we have been overtaken by the emotions in us. And therefore, while we work on every aspect of the being, we start with that which is the highest. And in our case, as opposed to the animals, in the human beings, it is the buddhi. The buddhi is what is loosely translated as intelligence, but it has to be clearly differentiated from mere intellectuality. And the Gita also segregates the Sankhya from the yoga. A mere knowing about things, as the Isha says, is avidya. But the true knowing is experiencing. And that is the higher intelligence or the buddhi. So there is in the mind itself, we have three kinds of intelligences that we have in our lower mentality. One is the chitta. The chitta is the combination of all the memories and sensations and the past that we have accumulated in our subconscious. That is the chitta. The manas is the sense mind. It is that aspect of our faculty of the mind which takes in the world and makes sense of it and its interrelations. And then is the buddhi. So Sri Aurobindo starts not with chitta or the sense mind, but with the buddhi. And the buddhi can be purified through these three ways. There are three stages. The first is having a big idea, having an idea about one's life and one's purpose, and having that big idea, which is solidly there like a pole star. And every action that we do is, that is the touchstone. Every decision to do anything is guided by that big idea. So to have that big idea is the first step. And that is our highest buddhi. And for us, for instance, it can be supramentalization. And I can tell you that it works even with kids. When my son was in kindergarten, and we used to talk about the purpose of life, and I had told him this entire story of how life was, it was matter first, and then how life evolved, and then mind evolved, and it is not the final stage, and we have the next level of evolution, which is the supermind. And the purpose of life is to every action, will, intelligence to be devoted to that pursuit. And it was so ingrained in his life that once in his kindergarten, the teacher was singing this song, which is the nursery rhyme, that I wish I was in Monkey Land, the land where I was born. And he just raised his hand. And when the teacher said, yes, what is it that you're saying? Then he says, ma'am, we should not go backward, we should go forward. And you should sing, I wish I was in Superman land, the land where I was born. And the teacher was very amused, and she called me the next day and she said, we have a little philosopher in the class. But since that day, when he had this big idea in place, till today, he's studying in his final year in New York, and he's living alone. And we are, he was born a vegetarian, for instance. And why it was not, vegetarianism was not introduced to him as a thing in itself, from a superiority point of view, but through the Gita as Sattvic, Rajasic, and Tamasic food, and how Sattvic food helps you to attain supramentalhood, this purity of the being, and so on. And he has studied in a boarding school, and now he's there, but he does not have non-vegetarian because it is this big idea that helps him make the decision. Nobody tells him on a daily basis that you should or should not do. Similarly, how to use one's time. Like, he does not visit any pubs or parties because he says, I prefer composing music or listening to Beethoven, because we have to spend every moment which is uplifting, towards supramentalization. So this big idea is the first step, which helps us stay the course, And the second is the true understanding of the buddhi, that the mind is not the originator of knowledge, but only a receiver of knowledge. And therefore, the mind is like a lake that can reflect the moon. And it can only reflect the moon when it is still. And when it is still, the sedimentary, mud and everything settles down. So mental silence as a need for the mind, for the buddhi to truly work. This understanding is the second step, the understanding. So the opposite of understanding is ignorance. So not knowing that mind is not just an instrument of knowledge is the ignorance which keeps us, which keeps the buddhi dull and muddied. So this is the second understanding and achieving of the mental silence, and things that can help it could be meditation, it could be chanting and japa, and it could be concentration on a particular subject, finally leading to an ability to still one's mind. That is the purification that one has to achieve with thought, cessation of thoughts. And the third is the transformation of this mind to, once it is stilled, the ability of this mind to reflect the higher truths that may manifest and come through it. And Mother has said that we have to allow these things, these intuitive flashes to come. We have to expect them and allow them with the still mind to be there. And finally, then will emerge the gnosis, consciousness, the mind of knowledge. And these are the various steps of the buddhi, the higher mind. And the understanding that also one, as I said, ego originates in the mind, and the solution is this understanding that this ego is an illusion, and we are actually one with the universe, and we have an existence which is not individual alone, but also universal and transcendental. And meditating on this idea again and again and making it a reality is how the purification process in the buddhi can happen. So starting with a big idea, having everything around it, and this big idea can be of realization of of nirvana, but in our case, it is of attaining supramentalization, stillness of the mind, and transformation of this mind to be able to, after the stillness, because there are certain spiritual disciplines where this silence of the mind is the final aim. But in integral yoga, where transformation is the aim and not just moksha or nirvana, after the mind is silenced, there has to be an aspiration to reflect the higher truths so that we make this world a better place. And this kind of purification is the beginning of the mental, because the mind is the highest instrument, as we said, and once it is purified, then it can take care of the others. Now comes the lower intelligence. Okay, the lower intelligence is that aspect of the mind which the lower mentality, as Aurobindo calls it, which is linked up with the prana, the antahkarana, and the sense mind, what we discussed. Just below the buddhi is the sense mind. And the purification of that, it is closely linked with prana, which is the emotional being as well. And here, the thing which obstructs and which makes it impure is the desire. And again, this desire is nothing wrong. It is just a result of the way we have evolved. You know, when I feel I'm separate from this world, because ego has been the gluing force of my entire personality, and that ego looks at itself separate from others, then obviously desire is the is what comes out of it, because everything which is not me, which is outside of me, is something that I want, because I have this sense of lack. You know, I have this sense of lack that I am not complete. I am just this little being which is having this limited existence, and there is a whole world out there. So this lack of not being that is what is the desire, the origin of desire. And it can be purified, it can be cured by, again, the understanding that I'm one with the world, but that's only an understanding. And then finally, this experience of oneness and universality, as the Isha Upanishad says, that when we do not have something, we are wanting it. But even after we have it, we do not enjoy it because we have this fear of losing it. So it says, Tena tyaktena bhunjitha, by renouncing all, enjoy all. So desire can be healed through this renunciation, with the understanding that I can enjoy all only when I become the Isha, when I become the Ishvara, when I become that universal aspect of myself, because then that is the only way I can heal myself, because then I would not have anything outside of me. Everything is something that I become, that universality. So there's nothing outside of me that is there waiting to be, acquired, because I already have all of that. So this desire is the next knot that has to be worked upon. And the whole of the Gita talks about how one moves from personal will to becoming an instrument of the divine will. So when I become this universal self, and there is nothing personal that I have to achieve or attain, then I may wonder, why am I living then? There's no desire left, because desire is considered to be this motive force. And here Gita comes to our rescue. It says that we live because of Loka Sangraha. Loka Sangraha is bringing people together, you know. It is working for the benefit of all. And even in Vajrayana Buddhism, the meditation begins with, first, it begins with this understanding or thought of envisioning that what is my worth in this world? What is my value in this world? And my value is that I can become enlightened. And why do I become enlightened? It's because I can help everybody else become enlightened. That is the purpose, not for oneself. So the desire is it is not a desire, it transmutes into the aspiration of Loka Sangraha. Loka Sangraha is helping everybody attain enlightenment. And not by talking like I am doing right now, but by being, by becoming that enlightened being, and through that, helping others become that enlightened person. And when this personal will transforms into the divine will, so that is the second knot of purification that has been unknotted and cleaned. So the first is ego. The ego, as we said, has its roots in ignorance and has its seat in the mind, and that can be healed through the knowledge. And by knowledge, Vidya of the Isha, it is not just studying of scriptures. It is not knowing as in Sankhya, but it is in experiencing and being. So the ego can be healed through knowledge, and desire can be healed through becoming an instrument of the divine will. And the first part of the Gita, and it goes on throughout, which talks about Karma Yoga, which talks about giving up the desire for fruit at the end and only doing work because it has to be done, is the process. So Karma Yoga is the finest path by which this purification of the desire will can happen. The desire will into the divine will. And that is the second knot of purification that we have to work upon. And the third is in the physical, and that is the attachment. Okay, attachment is holding on to as permanent to otherwise an impermanent state of being. Okay, and it has to do with the physical. Attachment originates in the physical. We have attachment to food, we have attachment to a certain climate or a certain comfort zone, kind of people we want to be with, and likes and dislikes. That though it is reacted upon by the vital, like and dislike, but it originates in the physical. You know, priyam and apriyam, as Aurobindo says. What is it that I find pleasant and what is it that I find unpleasant? And again, because the ego has been purified through understanding, this attachment can make use of that understanding and purify itself with this understanding that everything here is anyway impermanent. There's nothing which is permanent, be it seasons or weather or people in our lives and so on. And this impermanence has behind it a form, has behind it a truth. Like the river is not the same at every point, but it has something called riverness. Similarly, most of the things like the tree that I see here outside may not be there after 4 years or 5 years, but the treeness is always there. Similarly, all of us are here today and may not be there tomorrow, but there is a which Aurobindo also calls the Purusha consciousness, the Prakriti, which is always changing, and the Purusha consciousness, the witness consciousness, or which is there. So this attachment in the physical can be healed with this understanding that it is impermanent, and yet it is in the moment that one has to be from moment to moment and embrace life in its fullness and give it up. Again, the tena tyaktena bhunjita, not just enjoy, but also this attachment is just the physical's impurity to hold on to what is inherently changing all the time. And with our purified understanding, when we accept this, then we just flow with life. We just flow with the beauty of what comes to our life without any attachment. And we begin to enjoy the the thing that is beyond it. Like we do not enjoy a friend, but the friendship, the concept of friendship that is there. And we can unknot this impurity of attachment. And there are very beautiful lessons or chapters in the synthesis of yoga. Two chapters basically: release from the subjection to the body and release from the heart and mind. So these two talk about how we can free ourselves from this attachment to the body. So Sri Aurobindo even says that release from the subjection to the body. So body, basically, there is a requirement of food, sleep, and a certain kind of work. Okay. And Sri Aurobindo says that at some point in integral yoga, we have to be freed from this subjection to the body. And I had studied about this maybe 10 years ago. And the beauty of Sri Aurobindo is he does not give you the method, because he does not want anything to become a religion. And he allows you to discover the method by yourself. So and if there is sufficient longing to know the method, it comes to you. And it can be any method, for instance, right? So for me, the method that worked beautifully for this subjection to the body was Vipassana, where you just observe yourself. And I'll give you an example of how this whole hunger business is so overrated. And I have worked on it for the past 5 years. And from somebody who would get irritable and was not able to concentrate when I was hungry or I missed a particular meal, to today, I do 4 times Navratri in a year. Not that Sri Aurobindo talks about fasting, because he does not want anything to become a kind of a ritual or a religion. But if it suits, so I used fasting to practice this freedom from the need of food. Because anything, so the beauty of this journey is that the guru is within us, and the whole day is designed in such a way, the experiences that come to us are like a mirror that show us where we have to grow. So anything that makes us anxious or angry or upset, is an indication that the impurities are there. Like Amal used to say that to be psychic is never to sigh, not to kick. So as long as we are sighing or kicking, we are not psychic. Psychic in Sri Aurobindo's methodology is the inner, the Angushta Purusha, the inner fire of Nachiketa, that aspect in us which is upholding our evolution. So this psychic being, so when the more and more one gets purified, one has a more and more psychic attitude towards life. So if anything is making me upset or angry or anxious, is an indication. So because this hunger used to make me anxious, I decided to overcome it. And Vipassana helped me do it, because in Vipassana, you're just observing yourself and without judging. And that is how the witness consciousness, the Purusha and the Prakriti separate. So the first step of purification is this separation of the mind, life, and body from the psychic being, And I decided, and the 4 steps that Sri Aurobindo talks about, that the first is the witness consciousness. You start observing that you're hungry, and you also start observing that how it is making you angry, right? And the next step is Anumanta. Anumanta is when this witness consciousness finally gives its sanction to how the Prakriti should behave. Now, whether the Prakriti should react or not react, or how it should be. And finally, it becomes the Ishvara. Now, I don't know in what stage I'm in, but over 9 days, over Navratri, I just last with water without getting irritated and completely, working with like an office, 9 to 6 every day, and so on. And so this kind of attachment to this food is possible to come out of. And right now, what I'm working on is the next thing, which is sleep. Sleep is another thing which is overrated. And forget even speech. Mother says even death is a bad habit. It is something that we have acquired. We don't need to. And we can reach a stage where we can just separate ourselves from death even. And so sleep is something that I'm working on, and it is important to be freed from this. So what we covered so far is the triple knot of impurity in our being is ego, desire, and attachment. While this ego, the impurity of the ego affects all our mind, life, and body, but its primary seat is in the mind, and it can be healed and cured through an purified understanding and knowledge, and that understanding which is the true vidya, which starts from mental silence and moves to the transformation of the mind around a big idea, and finally the knowledge, developing a mind of knowledge. The second is the desire, which so the ego distorts our thinking and how we perceive the world. The desire distorts our will. It is, and the way we can purify it is through remember and offer, by offering ourselves more and more to the Divine Mother, and to not have this desire for fruit at the end of it, and to use the purified understanding that we are not separate from others, and therefore we don't have to acquire and desire anything. So even desire for fame is because of the ego thinking it is separate entity from others, and therefore it has to be more famous than others. Or when we acquire things, it's because it feels it's a separate entity. But through the purified understanding, we know that we have a universal self. And if my neighbor is a prime minister, it is okay, because he or she is a part of me. I am that in my universal being, and I don't have to be more important than that person. So this purified understanding slowly, step by step, helps us. And the final siddhi, or the main aim of that, is we become the instruments of the divine, and we start living the divine will towards loka sangraha. And the third impurity is of attachment to things. And here the purified understanding comes to tell us that everything is impermanent. One need not be attached to it. And anything one is attached to, one can overcome it, including food and sleep and the kind of work that one is doing, and the kind of, so one can be Trigunatita, or one can be Chaturvarnya. We have in India, the Swadharma. There are 4 kinds of temperaments, and there is spiritual discipline for each of those. But in the end, we have to aspire to become all 4, so that we do not have any preference of this particular kind of work. We are not attached to this particular way of being. So we are Chaturvarnya. We can become Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, all 4, men of knowledge, power, mutuality, and service. And the Gita says that when we become Trigunatita, we go beyond the 3 gunas. It is so the lever there is first to become sattvic, but eventually to go beyond the 3 gunas, and to be able to do and be anything at any time and any moment. And that is the siddhi of integral perfection that we have to look for and strive for. And purification is the first step, because of 2 reasons. One is, in integral yoga, we don't leave the nature behind. We make nature a collaborator, and transformation of nature. And nature is this mind, life, and body. So the first thing is using this mind, life, and body to attain that purification. And that purification is firstly the separation of the psychic being from this mind, life, and body. And once the separation has happened, the second level of purification is with this psychic light, which we direct on these three instruments to help them become more and more capable and as the doer of the divine works. And this is how we need to step by step go through all this process of purification. And it is not just a lifelong thing. It is something that is across lives. It is at every moment. Aurobindo says that every moment and every movement has to be consecrated. And the method of doing this is through consecration, through a purified understanding, and so that, as we started this conversation, one becomes a sparkling diamond. One can receive the light in its totality and reflect it in its without any distortion in it, like the perfect diamond, which has the maximum purity and clarity. And I invite you on this journey. And it's 1 hour is not enough to discuss about it, because there are many practices and many one can make a daily plan or a vision board for oneself. And the next 5 minutes, I would request you to take a pen and a paper and write down your vision of purification process, and how you would like to put to practice what you've heard over the last 3 days. And then maybe we could have a conversation. I could share with you how I do it on a daily basis and what helps me. And so if we can just take 3 to 5 minutes and just make a note of how we would work towards this purification in our daily lives, I would really appreciate that. Yeah, so we are at 6:12, maybe by till 6:15 or 6:16. Okay, would anybody want to share? Yes.
Hi,
Hi,
my name's Allison. Hi. Um, I thought about the three ways I might be able to work towards purification. First of all, in my mind, I want to continue to be aware of the content of my thoughts and their impact on my progress. I spend a lot of time working on this. And if I identify my thoughts are negative or pulling me in a downward motion or a constricting movement, I drop them and replace them with more expansive, uplifting, positive thinking. For my body, I have a regular practice of strength training, which has become part of my practice to focus on increasing the strength and power within my body and purifying it. And I also focus on nutrition and invite the most wholesome types of food that I can have at any given time when I'm eating. And then for my will, I focus on my higher aspiration, which is not to forget my inner divinity. Sometimes I forget it and get tangled up in my ego again. But when I remember it, it helps me realign what am I aspiring for, and does it align with what I know to be deep within me, the psychic being or inner divinity. And just that helps me recognize if some of my will or desires are not going to take me along the path that I know I want to be on. So those are the three ways I try to do that. And I focus on those three elements every day, not in a fixed manner, in a very fluid manner, but that's how I do it.
Thank you so much. Yes.
Thank
And
you.
I think you just said what I wanted to close the session with. So what has helped me design a day for myself is the section on education and austerities and liberations by the mother. And if you all haven't read it, I would encourage you to. So mother talks about 5 educations that we have to nurture and engage in our daily lives. And as Alison said, there is a physical, emotional, will, vital, and mental. And yeah, the last 2 sessions, which dealt with love and beauty, correspond to the psychic being. And that is where this idealism had first originated in us. The need to come to these sessions, or the need to take up this path or this journey, it originates in the psychic being. So every day, to nurture that, to visualize a part in us which is eternal and which is universal, and which is always turned towards light and beauty and love and joy, and which is always looking for progress and growth and perfection. And that is the psychic being in us. To every day also, in the morning and any time in the day, to remember that part in us, which first turned us towards this journey. That is something very helpful. And at the end of the day, what helped me a lot was a journal, a reflective journal, which when we objectivize our subjectivity, it helps us. It's like talking to a friend. So we could have a notepad, which we consider as a friend, and the mother's picture, or whoever is Arishta Devta, and we objectivize our subjective experience. That's all spirituality is about, practical psychology, or objectively understanding our subjective self. That's what Vipassana is about. It's about meditation, is about self-awareness, is about where we actively know ourselves. And reflective journal helps us in that. So every night, look at in detail, as much detail as possible, maybe from hourly to, half hourly to every minute wise, how we spend the day. And as Alison said, and as I told you earlier, and on the touchstone of this big idea, check that out and write where one did well and where one did not. So that is another practical step that helps. And having a conversation with like-minded friends is also very important. Having a group of friends who are aspiring for the same thing, or family members. And the other exercise, which my son and I used to always do, was we never played the mother and son kind of a relationship, but as spiritual seekers who are on this path of self-discovery, even when he was 2-3 years old. And we came up with these set of 10, we called it the 10 commandments, but they're not really commandments, it's like guiding posts, and which we wrote, and each one had to remind the other if one did not follow it. For instance, one of the things says, eat for nutrition, not for taste. Okay, it was one of the things that corresponded to the physical. So if I'm at the table and I tell the person who has cooked it, it's not tasty today, and my son, who was 30 years younger to me at the age of 3, would say, Mama, it's not about nutrition. It's about nutrition, not about taste. Or the second thing we had was, it's about it's all about the journey and not the destination. So once from Chennai, we were driving to Pondicherry, and he kept asking that, when are we reaching? When are we reaching? And I just said that, but it's about enjoying the journey. So when you have a group of friends, wherever I go, I've shifted to Ladakh 7 years ago, and I've created a group there where we are on this journey together, and we keep reminding each other, that positive, and that's the concept of the mother setting up the ashram or society or Aurobindo, where like-minded people can come, because it helps along the way. So these are some of the practical things which help. And always I try to be alert to anything which makes me sad or angry or upset. And that's an indication of the impurity that is there. And it is there that one has to then work either through transmutation of desire, or through, the flame of purified understanding, or through any of these means. But life and being in it and choosing a work that one aligns with one's Swadharma is the shortest way of purifying oneself. Because when one enjoys what one, so why is choosing the right work very important? Because when one is living one's Swadharma or doing a work that one likes, then any kind of failure or anything does not deter one from the path. One can keep going on and on in that work. And that is when one is engaged in Karma Yoga happily. And one can only engage happily because one is doing one's Swadharma. Then one meets hundreds and thousands of situations on a daily basis, which one can use as a mirror. And one has to be extremely careful. There is no self-deception there, and there is no too early retiring and celebrating one's success, because Aurobindo says nothing is done till all is done. So till the last bit in oneself has been purified, nothing has been done, and one has to be continuously on this path. And I wish you a journey of happiness, of self-discovery, of purification, but let this be a journey of delight, because unless delight accompanies this tapasya, there is chances that one may give up. So let us enjoy, and that is why Shiva has moon, on his head. Moon symbolizes delight. So let's enjoy this journey of transformation, which starts with this self-purification. Let's enjoy it, and then we shall all meet in that world which we are all trying to create. Thank you. And if there are any questions, I'll take up.
Yeah. Hi, Gitanjali. Yeah, I would like to ask about your concept of Lokasangra. What is that exactly, and how can we take the benefit of a community, and how can we help in their purification, or should it be only focused on our for purification?
Sure.
So it is very difficult to deal with a group.
So literal translation of Loka Sangraha is bringing people together. Okay. And if you see the world history, it has been the aspiration for the world many times. That is why we have this creation of UNOs and United Nations organizations and peace, World League of Nations and so on. But the mistake that makes is that it is a social congregation. Huh? But Lokasangraha, the true congregation, is spiritual. It is when spiritually people come together. So the ultimate aim that Gita gives to all of us is that after you have conquered desire, conquered the fruits of action, then why do you live on this earth? And Buddhism also says that is why you live as a bodhisattva. So the mother and the avatars or the green Tara, so bodhisattvas are those who decide to keep coming on this earth till the last person is realized. So when you have overcome your desires, only then you can become a true person who can bring Lokasangraha, because true Lokasangraha can only happen when people have realized their spiritual essence as one. I may look and feel very different sitting here than James, but when I have realized my universal and transcendental self, which are my spiritual selves, I would find that essentially James and I are one. And it is only in that understanding of that spiritual essence that true Lokasangraha can happen. And to do that, we have to transcend our personal will and become the true servitor and live the divine will. So I said this in the context of the desire, that once the desires have been overcome, then why does one live? Because there's nothing to aspire for. And the Gita says that you live because then that understanding you bring to the rest of the world and bring a true union of people, the Lokasangraha, which is around our spirituality.
So it is very difficult to know because desires are unlimited. Should we wait for that phase, or you have to start simultaneously?
No. It is not one by one that you work on your desire. So that is why one has to station oneself in the psychic being. And that is why Sri Aurobindo very much brings the concept of psychic being. The way the synthesis of yoga is different from the Gita's yoga is the introduction of the psychic being. And that is how from the yoga of tapasya, it becomes the yoga of surrender in Sri Aurobindo's thing. So we have to, the Purusha and the Prakriti have to be segregated. The psychic being has to be found, and that automatically melts. Like, for instance, if the whole place is covered with snow, and if you start shoveling snow over the whole earth, it is very difficult, right? But if you wait for the sun to come out, then automatically all the snow melts. So we have to work towards the birth of that sun within us, and that is the double soul in us, the psychic being and the Atman, the self. So when one takes station there, then automatically, slowly, the desires start to melt away. It's impossible to go linearly one after the other, working on the desire. It doesn't happen. And that is what this initiation is about. That is what divine grace is about. It just, the change, the the turn of the beam comes in one stroke. And then one has to just keep one station there, and slowly these things are taken care of. Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. James, you're on mute, I think.
Is there an English equivalent to this word, loka?
Sangha.
Question from Abby here. Please use the English equivalent for loka. So does anyone have any questions they want to ask Gitanjali? Any feedback or?
So there is no English equivalent yet.
Okay,
This concept does not exist in the English language, I think, but we can
right.
say gnosis. Aurobindo says gnosis, the
Gnosis.
collectivity that is one. So we could say the Gnostic society or the gnosis is Aurobindo's translation maybe of Loka Sangraha.
There is one challenge that we usually meet in current life, the desire of technological devices, so like or social media. So that has a lot of impact on our psyche. So how to cleanse them?
Yeah, so there's a very interesting word in the Vedas, the panis. The panis are the thieves who steal the cows, and that is the legend, the Angirasa legend. And I was studying it deeply, and I found who are the panis. So the panis are symbolically all those activities and faculties of consciousness that stray us away from the path. Cow represents divine light. So I look at all these, technology and everything as a double-edged sword. It's like knowledge and power. It's like any other resource. It can be used as the panis, which is like material resources have been used to even plunder the earth and plunder other nations and so on, right? Nuclear energy or knives and so on. But they can also be used as the divine resources. So technology by itself is agnostic. It can be good or bad depending on how it is used. But every time I see myself, going through it mindlessly, I know these are panis at work. This is that lower mentality that is repetitive, habituated. These are the panis. And what keeps us addicted to this is this habit, repetitive habit of just scrolling meaninglessly. That is as a user of technology. As a creator of technology, again, it depends on why one is creating it. It is to help human evolution. Like we have now this beautiful website called incarnateword.in. It has used technology in such a beautiful way to bring Mother and Aurobindo to everybody. Incarnateword.in. Beautiful work, use of technology. The same technology also creates Blue Whale, which drives children to commit suicide. So, like any of the things pertaining to the gunas, the resources, the physical, emotional, everything, it is both. It can be used for the divine work of evolution, or it can be to derail. So that's the answer for not just technology, but anything in this world. I hope that answers your question. Yes, Anil.
Yeah, thank you.
So Gitanjali, I can't resist it asking you this, you being an educator and building on what you just said, with generative AI, with the Chat GPT-4, and it really shifting the ground on how education and some of the work is going to be. I'm just very curious to know how that actually can be used to support what you are doing in Himalayan Institute of Alternate Learning, and how the world shifts, the human evolution shifts with that.
Yeah. So I jokingly tell my students that as long as AI enhances NI, natural intelligence, it's fine. But if it is at the cost of natural intelligence, then we have something to, think about. And as I answered in the previous question, I look at AI as a spur for human evolution also, because to manage smarter machines, we have to become smart ourselves. And if you look at the kind of jobs that machines are taking away, those were anyway jobs which dehumanized us, It's like repetitive jobs or hazardous jobs and dangerous jobs. So it is better that if machines can do it, one is they take care of those jobs. And secondly, they prompt us to evolve further, beyond our mind and deeper than our heart. So since the Industrial Revolution, we haven't lived deeper or higher, So AI is now propelling us to think, to go beyond the buddhi, which I just said, to intuition and higher ranges of Aurobindo, the different minds, and to go deeper than our physical heart into the psychic being, which the machines cannot emulate. So that's how we compete with them, by becoming more human or more divine. And I take it as a spur for the whole humanity, this AI. And I have the confidence, as it was brought out in 2001 Space Odyssey by Stanley Kubrick, that the Shakti, the mother of the worlds, will take care of this technology when it goes beyond a certain level, and if it is detrimental for humanity. The Mother Earth has been taking care of us and herself. It is far more conscious than we who are designing this AI. So there's nothing to fear is number one. And secondly, to be able to use it, we have to become smarter than it. And third is, by smarter, I don't mean like becoming smarter than chimpanzee by jumping, bigger trees, but by developing a new faculty called the mind. So similarly, becoming smarter than humans would be to give up this intellectual mind and go beyond the higher ranges of the mind. So to me, it is a spur to explore ourselves and deeper and higher. Thank you.
Excellent. Yeah. So, anyone else want to say anything or close the session?
Yeah, I have one more question.
Sure, go on,
Yes.
Sachin.
Yeah, simply, we are now living in a world where we are getting impacted from external things. Suppose the current war scenario.
Can you be a little louder, please?
Yeah, we are impacted by different world scenarios. Currently, the war is taking a toll on the world, and also there is a lot of impact on the also on the jobs, and so many things are happening. So there is a fear within, and also sometimes we are impacted by the disturbances created locally, from local level to national level or international level. So how can we segregate ourselves from this kind of external events and get ourselves only focused to the divine?
I'm sorry, James, can you rephrase it for me?
I think Sanjeev is concerned about the impact of unemployment. Is that right, Sanjeev? On jobs and things like that, and artificial intelligence taking over our lives and our jobs. Is that what you're saying?
There are a lot of things happening around the world, And
Okay,
also,
I get it.
yeah, so
So,
those
as I answered, as I was talking to Anil about it, so this whole process of evolution is self-regulatory. If we have to trust the process, and there could be these blips from time to time, which are helpful or not helpful, and we have to learn to handle that. And especially now with the supramental force which Sri Aurobindo brought down on earth beginning to act, Sri Aurobindo talks about the contribution of evil in this world, So there will be this things which were hidden for too long, they would come up. So all this while these problems were there, but they were hidden from our sight. It is a spiritual law that the more we attain higher levels of consciousness, the more we will be shown the deeper abscesses, and the abysses of our being and of the collective being. So whatever is coming up now is just coming up for us to act upon and to transform. And the journey of Savitri, when we read, when she's going, is very much similar. More and more things are shown which are not very beautiful, are even ugly, and that one has to develop those inner resources, spiritual resources, to deal with it.
Yes, and they have to be faced.
A victory.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Anyone else?
Thank you very much, Steve.
But we have
Thank
to
you,
learn
Sanjeev.
to trust the process, and we have to trust all the avatars that came before, and Mother and Sri Aurobindo, and the earth has continued to exist and become more and more beautiful. So instead of worrying about where the world is headed and this and that, the best way we can contribute is to realize our highest selves. And that begins with this process of purifying ourselves. That is the maximum contribution that one can do to this world.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you everyone for participating in the third session. And thank you, Gitanjali. So,
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining.
until tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you for your support and thank you for your participation.
Thank you.
See you tomorrow.
Thank you.